Hello, and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror, movies, and awesomeness. This week, we have a look at the 1977 film Orca. This is episode 423. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So, warning, spoilers ahead from Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jason Henderson, publisher at Castlebridge Media, home of the Castle of Horror anthology. With me from Austin is Tony Savaggio, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Tony's muted.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Howdy.
Also in Austin, Mr. Drew Edwards is the writer-creator of the long-running underground comic Halloween Man, which you can find at Global Comics. He is a Best Writer Ringo nominee, Austin Chronicle Best of Austin Award winner, and a member of the PEN America Fellowship. Say hello, Drew.
I also have 47 powerful teeth.
And finally, also in Denver, color commentary from Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. I'm so excited to have all of you guys back. Welcome, Julia.
Hello, everyone. Happy 2024.
Yeah. What a movie to kick off 2024 with, by the way. Like it certainly wasn't on purpose that we wound up here, but I'm kind of excited because anytime we sort of delve into the weird and wonderful world of lost 70s pop culture, I am thrilled. And this is actually less lost than many because this was a big deal.
It feels kind of appropriate given that all four of us are dealing with some cold weather too. This is a very wintry, chilly movie. So
It's cold, my man. I mean, I'm down here in my office. I got 2 pairs of socks on. 2. So
It's -7 degrees.
yes, yes.
No, it's not funny. It's true.
You can tell it with numbers or you can tell it with narrative. And I told it with socks, and that was so.
That's why you're the writer.
maybe it
I'm
would
the lawyer.
yeah. Maybe it would have saved Richard Harris if he had worn more than one pair of socks. Sorry, that's spoilers.
Around his head. That's
Yeah.
the only place he could have done it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right, Orca, also known supposedly as Orca the Killer Whale. Let me tell you right now, I have never seen that title on any release anywhere, but
Should have
it's
been known as
possible.
Orca Mastermind, I think.
Yes, Orca is a 1977 American thriller horror film directed by Michael Anderson and produced by Dino De Laurentiis, starring Richard Harris, Charlotte Rampling, and Will Sampson. The film follows a male orca tracking down and getting revenge on a fishing boat and its captain for killing the whale's pregnant mate and their unborn calf.
So sad.
This movie actually did make money. I mean, it made more than it cost, but it's remembered as a flop. And I think that is because it suffers terribly by comparison because everybody knew what this movie was trying to be. So if we find some choice critical quotes, we might share them. But it's interesting to look at it with fresh eyes, just kind of having forgotten that it existed. So, Julia, it is your turn to open us. Let's do opening thoughts. Julia, Drew, Tony, and then I'll go. So Orca, first of all, do you remember this exists, and what are your thoughts?
Nope, never heard of it, or at least didn't remember hearing about it. I found it to be quite disturbing at first. Like I was actually thinking, oh shit, I don't think I'm gonna like this movie at all because it was just such a dark opening where because you already have been introduced to the idea that the orcas are super intelligent and that they mate for life and all this. And so basically it's just like, okay, so we're supposed to identify with the orcas as, fellow intelligent beings that we care about. And so then, with the main character, call me Ishmael, who wants to just like kill an orca or get it captured or whatever for money. And so he's trying to get the male, and he accidentally hits the female, and her baby is killed as well. And it's just horrific because she's screaming and screaming and screaming, and it's just ugh. So that part, once you get past that, I feel like the movie is not that disturbing after that. I mean, there's still a lot of stuff, but it becomes more of a just kind of a Jaws homage, like a lot of male orca is going to get his revenge. He's super smart. He can do all kinds of brilliant things. And, but it's, so there's some fun things. I love that premise. It's pretty slow going in parts. and but in other parts it's really cool and the effects are neat, and you actually do feel like you're in places that you're not, or that they're a real
Yeah.
whale when they're not. So yeah, so mostly good.
Thank you very much, and also for kind of a synopsis at the beginning. Drew, so what are your thoughts?
So this is probably the third or fourth time that I've seen it, and I haven't seen it since I was a kid. I do have very vivid memories of the scene that Julia just referenced, because the female orca in her death throes gives birth to a dead pup, and it's a really disturbing scene, and I remember being really traumatized by that as a kid. But honestly, other than that, I didn't remember anything about the movie. So I was sort of going into this with fresh eyes. I enjoyed parts of it a lot. As Julia also said, I agree, like the effects are fun with the sort of mixture of like an animatronic
Hmm.
killer whale mixed with, stock footage, and what I think was probably an actual trained whale. Like there's like a neat mixture of stuff going on there. Some of the performances are pretty good. It's got a fun cast. Richard Harris, I have no doubt, was probably drunk a lot of the time while they were filming this.
Hmm.
um but it kind of works with his character. It's a mixed bag, like, because like the start parts that are slow are very slow, but anytime that there's whale mayhem, it becomes quite a fun watch. So I don't know that it'll go into like my regular rotation, because, and I mean, I admittedly have a lot of affection for the sort of the killer animal nature's revenge genre, but I don't know this will end up in my regular rotation. But I did enjoy revisiting it after so many years of having not seen it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Tony, what about you?
Yeah, I think I first saw it on cable and remember the first part, and I was pretty young, I think. I don't think my aunt who was there wanted to watch it or wanted me to watch it.
Hmm.
So I saw it in kind of fits and starts, but I did remember seeing it since then. So, a lot of the whale mayhem I kind of remember now. So I was like, "Oh yeah, that happened." So
Yeah.
that was kind of cool. I think it's an interesting movie. I think it's interesting to have it be a revenge movie before the Jaws revenge movies.
Yes.
Like we
That's
get
an excellent
this,
point.
and
Yeah.
how it I mean, it's hard to feel to empathize with any of the Jaws, even though I guess Jaws 2 was supposed, I think in the novel, was more of a revenge thing, if I remember correctly. But like this, you feel empathy for orcas, and you still do. I mean, if you have watched any documentaries about whales in captivity, it's hard to, parts of this are hard to watch too. But I think it's interesting. I mean, great cast. As far as a revenge movie, it's interesting to see a whale revenge movie, killer whale revenge movie. That's in itself worth noting. But I agree that it's slow in parts. You know, I think it's cool to cover it, and it definitely left a lasting impression. I'm with Drew, and now with Julia on that. That's the disturbing scenes are super disturbing. Possibly even more disturbing is why everybody sticks with the guy who seems to be cursed by a whale. But I guess, if we're gonna just go, you know what, Jaws was cool, but what if it was Moby Dick but smaller and Jaws? I
Yes.
guess is the for the elevator pitch. Not too bad. I think it's not an awful movie. I think it's got a lot going for it, but it's definitely, I'm kind of with Drew. I don't know if it would be in my rewatch all the time list, but I dig that we're covering it.
I mean, it's no
I have such old
alligator.
memories. Like this was in my, whoa, I couldn't see Jaws, but I could see parts of this at the time. So
Hmm.
this was kind of my first. I saw parts of this before I saw Jaws. So I think that was interesting to kind of relive that.
Thank you very much. There's so much interesting stuff here. As you mentioned, this is probably one of the major Jaws ripoffs. It's before Jaws 2 comes out. It's 10 years before Jaws Revenge, which weirdly enough has a similar plot to this. I what I think is most there's several thoughts swirling around in my head. One is it's amazing how hard it is to rip off Jaws, because Jaws is a masterpiece and everything else is just movies. And so you go, I'm going to do. They could have basically made a true rip off of Jaws, but instead, what this is weirdly is exploiting some of the themes of Jaws. And then you're right, Tony, creating an entirely new plot that's going its own weird places, and each of those choices have ramifications that help or hurt the story. And you know, one thing that in fact, like, it's a much bigger bummer. Let's start right off with just talking about the plot of the film. This movie starts out Charlotte Rampling, who, by the way, is like Lauren Bacall here. She is the most beautiful that Charlotte Rampling is immortal. I mean, she's still acting. She was on Broadchurch not long ago. You know, she's around. But here she is shockingly beautiful, plays this professor who tells us all about how smart these whales are and how wonderful they are and how ethical they are. And so right at the beginning, unlike Jaws, which in many ways which was much more of an exploitation film because it had no interest in like making you feel sorry for marine life. This movie starts out and stays there with, you know, making us feel empathy for these killer whales. And then our hero, the lovable, scruffy Newfoundland Irish fisherman, Richard Harris, slaughters one. And the movie stays in Bummer universe because you know, it makes it a very, very depressing, harrowing, violent act. And somebody made the joke that it was like if you were watching a movie that was a remake of Death Wish, only now the you know, Charles Bronson was being played by a whale, and you and you were asked to follow like Jeff Goldblum or one of the attackers in there, you know. And and I'm not stretching to say this. The movie takes great pains to to make you aware that it was a horrible, horrible thing that
For sure.
deserves revenge. And that just makes it like, if somebody said, "Hey, this is a Jaws ripoff," are these the choices that you would expect it to make?
I mean, I think the specter of Jaws is there because you know, there's X amount of Captain Ahab, you know, DNA in
Yeah,
some
and Quint. Yeah,
in the Quint and in the lead character, and Nolan, his name is
yeah.
Nolan, I was blanking on that. You know, this I you know what you're talking about, this is a much more morally ambiguous movie, I
Hmm.
guess, than Jaws,
Yeah, well
because
said. Yeah.
you know, Jaws is very much let's go, it's Jaws is kind of, you know, it's in the same vein as the original Dracula, as in let's get together and kill the monster.
Yes.
Only the monster in this case happens to be a great white shark. Here, the quote unquote monster is orca, is an orca, and not for nothing, you know, this, you know, is produced by Dino De Laurentiis, who also did the King Kong remake, and I feel like there's a lot of King Kong. It's like kind of
Yeah.
Jaws by way of King Kong, because it's asking you to empathize more with its
I forgot about that connection, but
yeah,
you're right.
yeah.
You're
It
right.
it it it
Yeah.
it feels very much like there's a lot of Kong in
Mhm.
this. You know, but the specter of Jaws is definitely hanging over. I mean, you know, there's all lots of shots of the fin breaking the water. There's, there's all the whole final act, which is taking place on a sinking boat. You know, like you can't
Yes.
get away from Jaws. And you know, you were correct. Like this movie is in no way equal to Jaws.
Well, and
Um,
I love that it opens basically with the movie going, "You think Jaws is bad? Check this out because the orca kills the great white that's about to like
Yes.
Although
attack."
that's
Right,
a what they
right.
call on TV tropes, a truth in television moment,
Yes.
because orcas really do eat
Yeah,
sharks.
sure.
So you know,
Yeah,
but
that's how he
yeah,
started. He was like initially wanted to make a movie, and he's like, "Find me something that's worse than a shark," or whatever. So they were like, "Killer whale."
Yeah, it's so
Oh, that
funny
is good.
creatively to think about, like, if somebody said to us, "There's big interest in sharks, so if you can come up with a concept that I can say it's kind of like that shark movie, we can get some money to do it." So obviously, it doesn't happen without that, right? But it's still just so weird, to make all these choices, which are way different. Because again, Jaws is a masterpiece, but you don't have to be a masterpiece. You can just be a ripoff. But this is something weird and different. I'm not overly defending Orca. I don't want to like go out on a limb. It's not like it's an unsung great movie or anything. But
They do make a lot of out there creative choices. I mean,
mhm,
you're not wrong, because yeah, I mean, first of all, like most outside of the marine biologist, like most of the main characters are not that likable or sympathetic. Like, this has
yes,
like a very sort of grimy, cynical vibe to it that Jaws doesn't. And I mean, also maybe that's because this is a winter movie and Jaws is a summer movie.
oh,
But
interesting, yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
There's not a
also,
tourist trade here, right? There
no,
aren't,
I mean,
yeah.
we're dealing with like a fishing town. But that end of itself kind of creates problems with this, because they have a harder time staging whale attacks, because so much of this takes place on the land.
Yes, yeah. Although a lot of
Which
this
is why
land.
the
Go ahead.
why the orca is a mastermind, is because he's able
Yeah.
to kill people on land.
Yeah.
I Go ahead, Tony. I thought I heard you say something. Maybe I was hearing myself. Sorry. Um, I loved the fact that this. I don't want to skip ahead too much, but when we get to it, the fact that this orc is able to attack a house on stilts because he knows that's
No, he blows up a freaking whatever, like what is
yeah,
that? Like
yeah.
a
Hold that thought.
gas
We'll
station?
get
Not,
there.
I don't know what you call that thing. A fuel station? I don't
Well,
know.
okay. If you want to get into the because I want to get to Richard Harris in a sec, but let's talk for a moment about the character of the whale, which is never given a name. And I really do kind of wish, since they go out hunting it like Ahab, I wish that they would give it a name. I know that sounds stupid, but I want to call it something else besides the orca. I would really like it to be called anything. I mean, I just
Bubba.
I mean, Moby Dick.
Moby Dick.
We
They
can
absolutely
call you. We can just Dave the
Dave,
whale.
David,
I don't know.
yes.
Bubba.
It should be Dino
Charles Whale.
after Dino De
Oscar.
Laurentiis.
Oscar. Oscar the
Yeah,
Orca. How
Dino.
about that?
Dino. I like Dino because
Yeah. How about
for Dino
Oscar
De
the Orca?
Laurentiis.
Dino's good. Dino's good. So Dino,
So yes.
Jason, just for you, Dino presenting Dino the Whale in his starring role as wronged husband.
The whales
And
do have names that are the trained whales. I'll have to find the name.
Oh yeah.
Actually, that'll be the next. That'll be the next Jason Statham movie. Is Jason Statham as Dino the Whale? You should have never. You should have never messed with his family.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay,
So
so
the male, okay, it actually has a name.
all right.
It's called Nepo, yeah, because it says the killer whale was in IMDb portrayed by an animatronic whale filmed off the coast of Malta and Newfoundland, and stock footage taken at Marine World in Redwood City, California. The stock footage killer whales were named Yaka the female and Nepo the male.
Okay, fine. Nepo. So this whale Nepo, after that very, very disturbing death of his mate and the pup, which by the way is a step that into exploitation, like that's intended to play really maudlin, but instead is really gross and shocking, and and just kind of is. To me, that's what marks this as not Hollywood, really, particularly. There are some things where you're like, no, somebody should have sanded that off, because that's a step too far. It shocks the audience and takes them out.
Well, it freaks out the characters too, because even
Yes, it does.
Nolan is like, oh.
Mhm.
Well, especially when they go out of the way to say, "Hey, by the way, these pups have hands when they're born."
Right.
As they're developing, as they're developing,
Yeah, they look like
have
babies.
hands. It's
Yeah.
like, so, yeah. I mean, it's and all the cries and everything.
Well, that's
Terrifying.
another. You talk about like the difference between this and Jaws and how there's no empathy for the shark in Jaws. Really, that's another thing. The fact that we are talking about a mammal, you
Yeah.
know, like there is a certain degree of species prejudice that humans have, and if something is a fellow mammal, we will immediately empathize with it more, whether that's right or not. You know, you
That's really
can get
interesting. There
into.
might be something to that.
I would say there definitely is. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
think about, you know, just last year when we were reviewing Godzilla versus Kong, like the way that King Kong is portrayed versus the way Godzilla is portrayed. You know, and whether it's subconscious or intentional on the filmmaker's part, you know, here I think it's 100% intentional. But
Yeah. And it becomes explicit later on because Richard Harris will say, I want to I want to get close to the whale and apologize to it because I also lost a baby, and I think that the whale will understand me. By the way, these are the moments when the script really feels so bizarre that that then you're like, I can't believe I'm hearing this. King Arthur is saying that he wants to get close to this whale because he
Well,
thinks that
he
somehow
wants
the
the
whale.
whale. He wants the whale to forgive him when he tells the whale how he's going to tell him this. I don't know.
Yes.
That that a drunk driver killed his wife and child.
Yes. I like, by the way, that
Yeah.
the orca can, you know, apparently this is documented. They can recognize humans, you know, and that makes sense that they know their trainers and so forth. So we have this great shot or two where Nepo comes up out of the water and sees Richard Harris and just spends a moment memorizing him. And I really kind of wished, Julia, you were the one who made that comment that
And
he
it would
kind
have
of
made a camera
like like
sound
a
right then. Yeah.
Right.
it's just so fantastic.
I kind of wish, you know, in a world where you do this in a crazy modern way, almost like you want to give him like Charles Bronson's voice or something. Like, it's just this amalgam of I see you, mother.
I see you, Irishman.
That's
Oh
right.
my gosh. You know,
He does a little fin. He does, you know, he pulls out his fin and does the little like double finger eye, you
yeah.
know, back and forth. Like you.
I love that at one point the whale
Fucking you.
literally waves them on, like, come on.
Yeah.
Like he's
Oh
like
yeah,
pulls
yeah,
his
yeah.
fin out of the water and is like, let's go this
Right.
way.
Yeah.
So funny.
But to get back to the many amazing feats of Nepo, yes, two of the biggest attack. Basically, what gets the town to turn against Richard Harris so that he must go and hunt this whale uh, are a few really. It starts out he sinks various boats and he can recognize the boats and he knows which one is Richard Harris's. But beyond that, Julia, you wanted to explain, or Drew can. Julia, you want to take a crack at how he blows up the town, basically, like he.
I can't imagine that the whale actually knew what he was about to do would have the effect that I don't think even a person would have known. I think he just lucked out and he was like, "Wow, cool! I hit this gas line intending to cause a fire here, and somehow I managed to blow up like a big like a refinery type of thing, whatever you call that. Just that. What would you call that? Where the like the power station,
Maybe
the power station. It's like I managed to blow up the power station. It's like cool, yeah. Of course, the power didn't go out, so maybe it's not a power station.
maybe
But
he
I
got word.
prefer to
Maybe he got
think that
word
it
from his
told.
revolution. Oh, go ahead, Drew.
I prefer to think that it 100% knew what it was doing. That
Yeah. No,
this whale is a criminal genius.
I was gonna say he got word from his revolutionary friends, you know, up further north who've been sabotaging stuff
Yes.
for, you know, like, we
It's
got you.
so.
Here's what to do.
I mean, when the fact that he like knocks out these pipes and it lets out gasoline and he does this stuff and it sets fire and the two mix and stuff starts blowing up. I mean, this is like Steven Seagal kind of stuff. Like
I
he
kind of
really.
wanna like a Orca version of like Echo the Dolphin, the game, but
Oh.
instead you're like this Orca who's like out for revenge, creating mayhem and Like Echo was all about like solving things and being good. I kind of want to see. I kind of want to play the reverse of that, where you're like, okay, now it's time to go wreck some ships and
I really want to see like
attack some
a cartoon
factories.
version of him. He definitely needs a little like Black SEAL Team 6 beanie, you know, and and like a sweater and some grappling
I
hooks.
mean, they made Toxic Avenger and RoboCop cartoons, so
Yes.
and Rambo. So, why not? Why stop there?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so he does that. He blows up the refinery. He there's a house on stilts. This is the funny thing is I must have seen this in clip shows at the time because
I
there's
mean,
a
I'm gonna
house on
put
stilts.
stilts in quotes. It's more like a house on twigs, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, so yes, Richard Harris would definitely have a cause of action against the people renting in this house because it's not very sturdy. But the Orca knows he hates Richard Harris, and he knows that Richard Harris. I'm going to say this without laughing. He knows that Richard Harris occupies this house on stilts on the edge of the cliff, and so he goes and bashes out all of the stilts so that the house sort of tips into the water. Again, we
With Bo
cannot
Derek, with
with Bo with
the
poor
debut
Bo
of
Derek.
He
the
bites
film,
off Bo Derek's leg.
Yes,
the movie debut of Bo Derek, and she gets her leg
and
chomped off by a.
that's an expensive leg. I mean, that's a Bo Derek leg. That
Yep.
Bo Derek, by the way, I just want to take a moment to say what an amazing person Bo Derek is, because she at the time was married to John Derek, who very much controlled her career, but their relationship was very complicated. They stayed together until he died in 1998. And then, interestingly enough, because Northern Exposure is back now on Prime, she met John Corbett 4 years after that, and they're still together.
Oh, I
So
didn't know that.
yeah, so Bo, good on Bo, but
Good on
yeah,
him too.
yeah, exactly. Sure. Yeah, I mean, but Bo Derek she is one of I don't there's not a clever phrase for the sexy ladies of the 70s, but good grief. If there were like 4 or 5 posters, one of them would definitely be Bo Derek. And
Mhm.
so here she is, freshly faced and scrubbed, and it's her first film. And she loses a leg to to an
Well,
angry
first
shark.
the whale breaks her
Well,
leg,
sorry.
and then he bites it off with
Yeah,
cast
okay.
wall.
Did we miss? I apologize for this stupid question. When did she break her leg? Did I just look away in the scene where she broke her leg, or are we missing some scenes?
I think we just understand that it happened during all the mayhem of the fires, but unless
Yeah,
Tony
I
has a different
I
opinion.
think she broke her leg when the whale attacked the boat the first time.
it must
And
have, but it must have happened off screen because
That's
we
the thing. That's one of the problems with this movie is that it's both meandering and quick at the
yeah,
same time.
Mhm.
So it's easy to suddenly be like, wait, what just happened?
yeah, yeah.
But honestly, like the fact that they were going to have the sort of like sexy side character and bite her leg off, that's kind of a gutsy
I
no pun
agree.
intended move on the movie's part. But maybe it's also me just like looking at this with modern eyes and knowing that like Bo Derek goes on to be a
Yeah,
big
yeah. A major
star.
force, but she's a crew member. I mean, to some extent, the movie is just dispensing with crew members. They give him a lot of people
Yeah,
on his crew so that the whale can eat them one at a time.
yeah.
And
Well,
The whale eats a ton of people.
that's also his final motivation towards actually going hunting for the whale, because what's like one of the interesting things about him as a character is, at least initially, because he feels so guilty, despite the fact that everybody in this town is kind of pressuring him to do it, he doesn't really want to go kill the whale. And I think
yeah,
that's kind of cool. That does separate him a little bit from Quint, which
Mhm.
is kind of who he's somewhat patterned off of. But the
Yeah,
fact that he's
he's merely
remorseful.
reckless at the beginning in that
Yeah.
he wants to capture a whale, and his scientist girlfriend says, "Well, you're awfully reckless, and you're probably going to just do a lot of damage," which turns out to be exactly correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he doesn't. But to be fair, though, his recklessness, he doesn't really care. It seems like until he's not going to make money and people start getting hurt.
Yeah.
Like the way he's
I think
reckless
he
at the
does. I think
beginning,
he
the way
does.
he's reckless at the beginning is pretty terrible. I
I
mean,
think he does care after
Yeah, because
he
he's
sees the
relating to the
dead.
whale.
Yeah,
Right.
after he sees the dead mama whale on the beach, he seems, at least the
yeah,
way
but
his
what I'm saying is leading up to that. He's like, yeah, let's go get some whales. It's all good. And he's
Right.
like, oh,
Oh,
No.
yeah,
It's
no,
only
you're
it's only
right
once he
about
starts.
that.
It's only once he starts relating to the whale as having also lost his wife and child that he.
Yeah.
By the way, can we
Oh,
talk about these
I totally
models?
agree with that, but I think that this movie does, and it is one of the things that kind of sets it apart from some of the other Jaws knockoffs, is they give this guy a bit more
Mhm.
of an arc.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they tried to do that almost with like too many characters, because like there's a lot of wishy-washiness with some of the side characters, like their motivations seem to change from scene to scene. But I felt like Nolan himself is kind of consistent in a sort of Shakespearean way, I guess, which
Mm.
maybe that's why what they were going for, with the fact that they did have an actor like
Yeah.
Richard Harris.
It is funny, because they've already made this if you think like their model would be in theory Jaws. In Jaws, Quint and the captain, the police chief, are two different characters. And
Yeah.
here they've kind of been combined into one character, and then the scientist character is
Love
Charlotte
interest.
Rampling. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, by the way, that Bo Derek is just a scientist also, and he's not chasing after her. There's not a, which is cool. Like her character could
Well,
just
the
as
other
well
crew
be
member is
male.
chasing after her.
That's true, but it's requited. They're a thing, But yeah, I liked the mixture of that. Yeah, I do want to spend a moment and say, and we'll get to other members of the cast, but the models, the big rubber and fiberglass and whatever the hell they're making it out of, the big mannequin whale that lays on the beach, is amazing looking. And there was anecdotal stuff that we looked at online that suggested that people actually believed that these were beached whales when they saw them, because they're very effective looking.
So
I was real
protesters were
worried.
protesters were blocking them because they didn't want
Oh no.
Honestly,
mistreat them.
the animatronic effects in this, and the fake whales, are a big step up. Like this is the one thing that I do think is better than Jaws. The effects in this are actually technically better than Jaws. Whether they are used better is a different topic entirely, but you're actually able to see the killer whale a lot more because they have an animatronic
Yeah.
that works. Like
Boy.
it looks good when when you look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's I was really worried about it because you spend enough time watching Joe Bob, and you'll see some Italian movies where they go, "Oh, do we need to kill something? Well, then I guess we got to do that." And it can be shocking. So I'm really really happy that we're not looking at anything like that here. It's really believable. Um, I also wanted to mention, and Tony, you were pointing out that Will Sampson, who plays Umalak, who is one of the crew members who comes on later, who you know, he gives a lot of advice about handling whales and how they act, and he also joins the crew as once a lot of the crew start getting eaten, they need more crew, and so Will Sampson joins. Will Sampson is I'm gonna find this here, 6'7", and he's Tony pointed this out to me. He's from Okmulgee, Oklahoma, where I have spent way more of my life than you would imagine, and so
I
that's
wonder if he
really great.
knew your great grandma or your grandparents.
I want, I never asked, like, hey, do y'all know this giant from named Will Sampson? But there is actually a road named after him in Okmulgee. That's pretty cool. So
I
yeah,
mean, I recognize him from like Outlaw Josie Wales and
Yeah, he's in a
Poltergeist
bunch of
too.
stuff. Hmm.
Like
One Flew Over the
he's
Cuckoo's
great.
Nest.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. It was cool. Like when I had forgotten he was in this, and then seeing him, like, oh man, yeah, he's just he's in yet another one of those people that when you see him in a movie, you're like, oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's a real shame. He died young, of let's see, what was it? It's scleroderma, a chronic degenerative condition affecting heart, lungs, and skin. So that's awful.
Oh, that's tragic.
So
Yeah.
yeah, 53 years old he was. So that sucks, but really, really wonderful.
Really, really young. I say this because I'm going to be that this year.
I also am going to be that this year. So
Yes.
once Richard Harris is convinced that he's got to go after that whale, face the whale one on one, partly because he wants to, and partly because the town is making him do it because they're not going to live in peace until the whale has a one on one with Richard Harris. Tony, you were saying that it becomes almost a spiritual quest kind of thing that he's heading out into. Did I get that right?
I mean, sort of like it becomes. I mean, it's part that, part Moby Dick. It's a lot of things. I'm just still like amazed that people want to. He gets a pretty sizable crew together after after having after all this mayhem that we keep talking about, right?
Yes.
Legs bitten off, power plants, fuel plants
People
exploding.
have died. A couple of
Yeah,
people have died.
and at that note, like he gets a crew together. They meet a
Well,
terrible
I mean, the
end as
people
well.
in the town, this is sort of what I'm talking about, how there seems to be some confusing motivations in here. Because, like, the people in the town do want him to go kill the
Yes.
whale. And, the Will Sampson's character throughout the entire, until he gets on the boat, he's like, yes, I will help you facilitate this hunt for the whale. Like it's funny, like he becomes antagonistic towards Nolan once he's on the boat. Like he's like, oh, you're crazy, you've lost your mind. But like the whole time he's like, you got to go hunt the whale, bro. Like
no, I get that, but what I'm saying is at no point, like he gets a crew together instead of people going, look, man, that whale destroyed a house and some plants and our boats. This is between you and the whale. Take a dinghy, get a speedboat, fly a helicopter, whatever you need to do. Go do your whale crap. I don't want
most of
my
the
own
crew,
leg bitten
though,
off or whatever.
most of the crew are his crew. Like they're
Yeah,
like,
but still.
like,
I mean, what I'm saying is those are some good friends. Look, here's the thing: if this is hot, maybe this is like, oh, would your friend bury your body? Will your friend take you to the airport? Will your friends help you chase a whale that's that's destroyed boats, power plants, houses, and bitten somebody's leg off? Those are true. I mean, look, I don't have a boss that I don't remember any boss where I'd be like, you know what, man? Yeah, let's go find that whale for you.
The only person I really question going on this asinine quest within the realms of movie logic, mind you, is the boyfriend of Bo Derek. Like, she's still alive. He should be by her side at the hospital instead of
no doubt.
being on a boat where he's whale food as well. I don't know. Like, but everything else, I guess, like, I'm not saying you're wrong. Like, if this was in the real world and not a movie, like, you absolutely would be right. But like, there's
it's not right or wrong. It's just whether, like, I was watching it going, man, this crew is dedicated to this guy, and he's kind of a jerk a lot of times too. Like, to go, like, it's one thing to, hey, that was unfortunate, maybe we should go take care of this whale. But once everything's happened, once all the mayhem's been caused, I'm surprised. And to the sadly for all of them, that was misguided because they meet some pretty grisly deaths.
Yeah, I mean, and you kind of realize that it's happening, that people are being picked off.
like
I
Jason. It
yeah,
becomes
exactly.
a whale slasher movie too,
It's like,
in
oh,
some
I
ways.
think Will Sampson's gonna get it next because I have a feeling that it's just gonna be these final two, and unfortunately, Will's not gonna make it.
It also becomes like the end of like the Frankenstein, where
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
fixing off into the especially the one TV adaptation where they spend a decent amount of time
Yes.
up north.
Well, yeah, okay, so let's talk about getting there. So the whale tells them, "Listen, let's carry our fight deep far away," and they start a long journey. Which you're right, this is ridiculously poetic. It's like Stephen King sort of vision quest kind of stuff. That they go way north, and so that you're right. Like in Frankenstein, they come to this polar ice basically where they're going to have their final battle, which is hilarious.
Which, by
That
the way, talking about the effects,
yeah,
is a hot island of Malta that they have turned into
Right, right.
this icy tundra type of thing, and it's just amazing. It looks
it's a
great.
great
It looks
effect.
perfect.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was so cool that I like wished that it still existed because it seems like you could use it for a bunch more productions. You
And
know.
eventually also Charlotte Rampling turns into like it looks like she's dressed up for a ski resort in a Bond movie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, with her head wrapped and stuff like that. And by the way, at this point in the movie, Richard Harris is
He looks
wearing
like a monk. He looks like a Jedi.
yes, it's
He's
Yeah.
so
wearing this.
there's weird shit going on in this movie,
Hmm.
and I yeah,
I like to
so
picture as he leads it that our whale Nepo, it's like
yes,
somehow like Die Hard, like he's got a ha ha ha, I have a something. Like he's
yes.
messaging them like follow me.
Oh my goodness. Yes, he does. He literally turns over and like uses his flipper to
Yes,
go,
you just fin to go
"Come
this
on.
way. Let's go this way.
It's
The
it's
whole
so silly.
idea that they have to follow this whale, like, and he wants it to be you want to talk about somebody that's off his rocker, like, he has a gun. He
Yes.
could have just, I know it's not
He doesn't want
exactly,
to.
I know, but
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, this is how far gone he is because this whole time that they're trailing the whale, instead of like doing a quote unquote fair fight, which by the way, there's no fair fight between a
Right.
maybe 150-pound human and a 2-ton killer whale.
Well,
Yeah.
the fair fight is using the gun because the human has
Right.
tools.
Well,
Right.
he for some reason brought only one harpoon, which
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
he
find.
forsakes that. He thinks it'd be fairer if he uses a Moby Dick style
Yep.
old,
He
throwing
could have just
harpoon.
picked up, if he was really interested in killing the whale, though, he could have just picked it off any time between
Mhm.
there
Of
and the
course.
icebergs. Like
Yes.
it's
It is super strange. And that's why, by the way, I kind of, as we look at this stuff again, I have to stop and go, what, what is bad really? Like, in other words, Jaws is genius. Jaws 2 is just a movie. What is bad? Because I've seen really bad. This
Well,
is just weird. Like
yeah,
that's
no,
the thing.
I'm with you, and I think that there's a certain amount of like poetry to what it's going for, but I think again it's just like kind of strange choices in the way that it happens.
Yes.
Like in a different world, it's like it's got to be this fair fight. And like, what are you gonna throw him a pair of brass knuckles, and you're gonna have a pair of brass knuckles, and duke it out in the water ring? Like that's not gonna happen, right? Like
Yeah.
what is fair and what are your perceptions of this hunt,
Yeah.
like he's trying to get you into his realm, and which is what happens, right? Because he starts to again go, oh well, now you're in the where I want you, like I've been
Yes.
leading you around. He knocks over ice,
Yeah.
he's attacked other people, he's pulled them under and everything like that. Like I said, it's like a strange slasher movie at one point,
Yes.
which is kind of the what you want in the way that the way this movie plays out. That's the revenge, right? Like picking off one by one. But it's definitely and I don't think it's bad. I think it's just fascinating that we're along for this ride that is what is a whale revenge flick. We've seen it in Jaws, right? Like
Yeah.
especially in the in the last one where it's like I followed you. I am in the Jaws family, and I followed you to south.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
that's a weird. Those are weirder choices, to be fair,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
And that was
I don't
hilarious.
even,
And
I think there is stuff about this that is technically bad. Like it's an uneven, but it's
right.
not like if we're talking about levels of badness, like this movie's sins are mostly that it's like uneven. Like if it just had a little bit more of the stuff that is engaging about it,
mhm.
I
Yeah.
think that this could push it over into being a movie that I would want to revisit more. Because like saying it's derivative of things, honestly, like that's one of the reasons why we're revisiting it. Like
Right, exactly.
this whole period of like late 70s, early 80s, like killer animal movies
Hmm.
that came out after Jaws. Like that's a fascinating period of pop culture, and it's interesting to discuss. So
Yes.
like originality isn't the only thing, and even Jaws has stuff in it, from Moby Dick to 1950s creature features. Like Jaws isn't a completely original movie itself. It's
Oh,
mostly just
absolutely.
its presentation.
And you've got with Jaws, it's almost not fair to even talk about Jaws because, like, with Jaws, you've got Steven Spielberg, who has an excellent eye for everything and knows how to pace everything. So yeah, there are some. I think what I'm saying is there are terrible mistakes being made here in terms of pacing and stuff like that, but there are weird choices being made that make me want to watch this movie, which counts for a lot. I mean, to me, it's super watchable.
To me, I don't even know if it's terrible. I mean, I've watched plenty of great
Yeah,
movies
exactly.
We've watched worse
that
movies
snag.
for
For
this
sure.
podcast.
A lot.
Again,
Like,
this is
yeah, but
not
like I've
vampire
seen
hookers.
movies
I mean,
that
this
are
is
considered
yeah,
really, way, to top this for whatever, court of opinion you want to go for that. Well, the middle kind of sags here or whatever, right? Like,
yeah.
I think Terrible's probably like, and this is one of the, actually, to be fair, I think this is one of the better animal, we're talking about this whole post Jaws. What animals can we sick on people?
Mhm.
I think this is one of the better ones. I mean, also, like, Scott, a way more, kind of pedigree class of actor
Yeah.
in this as well. Like, and everybody's doing pretty well with what they're given. So I think this is one of the better animal attack movies. To be
Well, it's
fair,
well
yeah, it's
remembered.
not. Yeah, I mean, it's not. Yeah, I guess the parts it's slow, but when it does ramp up, I mean, how
Yes.
many? When else have you seen a killer whale attack a house and blow up a
Agreed.
plane?
And it's not
That's
even that. I
amazing.
mean, there are parts where it might be lagging a little, but on the other hand, I've watched a lot of Italian slasher movies, and there's often a lot of walking around.
Right,
So
exactly. Yeah.
I'm okay with the level of pacing that we've got. It's so strange that we are finding ourselves defending this movie, but
Well, it
it's
doesn't even really need defending, because like try to read up on this movie,
yeah.
it seems like it's got a decent fan base, like whether or not that's like nostalgia goggles for or not, but like there's a lot of people that are going to bat for this movie.
Oh yeah.
Like I've seen reviews of it, no joke, where they do say that it's better than Jaws. And that's a tall order, but like
I mean,
it's
I'm about whatever if you like this movie, if this movie resonates with you more than Jaws, awesome, cool in the game. Like, I wouldn't who am I to take that from you? But to say it, man,
That's okay. I mean, that's what the
that's a
internet
hard one.
does.
I can't cop to that. Like, Jaws is a really well
It's a
made
masterpiece.
type.
It's
Like,
just it's fair to
there's a
say
reason
that
why it's come through. Like, it's as classic, and this perhaps isn't as classic.
well, I think
Yeah.
if we are to look at like perhaps an earlier grouping of horror films, it would be fair to say that Jaws is Frankenstein, this is House of Frankenstein.
Right. And also, again, like when you say, like, you can say I prefer this movie, but we don't get, like we've said, I think multiple times, you don't get this without Jaws, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Like
Yeah.
in the same way you don't get some, monster movies. There's monster movies that, like, if you prefer this one, cool, but you can't just disassociate. You can't say like, screw Jaws, it's too hype or whatever. Like, well, you don't get one without the other, right? For better or worse, no matter where you fall on that. And so
Yeah.
I think there's at least give it some respect. It's kind of
So I when this film ends, and it ends in an amazing act 3 where they're there's a fight on the ice between it's so silly to talk about this. There's a fight on the ice between Richard Harris and the whale, and the whale ends up basically killing Richard Harris by maneuvering him onto a platform and then flipping him by
He
well,
beats him to death with his tail and then flings
yeah.
him out of the
yeah,
water.
yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness.
Which is what
And
whales actually do to seals, apparently.
Yeah,
oh
exactly.
wow, so
Yeah,
some
no, definitely.
truth in television again. Yeah, so and Charlotte Rampling is left,
Sorry. He seals the deal.
and I don't think there's anybody else alive. And the
No,
boat,
Will Sampson has been killed in a
And
ice
Well,
yeah.
yeah, because he also sinks their boat. I mean,
But the one thing he does do, which is important for Charlotte Rampton, is that he puts in an SOS before the boat
right,
sinks.
right,
oh
right.
right, okay. So the helicopter is coming. Yes,
How
yeah.
dark would it have been if that hadn't happened, though? Where she's
Oh
just
my
stuck on the ice. I
Just
mean,
out there.
that would have been,
Oh, good point.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
presumably some people knew that they were going out there, but I don't know. But so the IMDb suggests that the whale will actually die off screen because the ice is too that the fact that the whale is swimming under the thick ice means that it will die because it won't be able to go up for air, which it needs. Which
Unless
I thought
John,
was interesting.
this wasn't John Derek, unless the director, Mr. Anderson, said that himself, I will just write that off as film theories. I mean,
Well, it's multiple choice, but I sort of like the idea that the whale wins.
yeah.
Like
Well,
I
especially if it's like
Yeah,
Jason
I'm
or
with
Michael
you.
Myers, where it's like it doesn't die.
Well, so when I was reading about this, I came across a YouTube video that suggested that this movie been more successful. And I don't I question this. I'm not
Mhm.
saying that this is true, but it's an intriguing notion that if had this been more successful, that Dino De Laurentiis was going to do a King Kong versus Orca movie. And I
Oh,
am
that is
both
bizarre.
fascinated by that and how weird of an idea that is, but also because I've never seen any other reference to that. And I'm as we said, I'm a fairly big Kong fan, so like I've done my fair share of reading about King Kong. you know I I've never heard any other reference to that, but it's a fascinating,
Yeah.
like this whale swims off to his impending battle with King Kong.
Well,
Uh,
unfortunately, De Laurentiis is completely capable of making bizarre choices. So it absolutely is conceivable to me that he could decide, I'm gonna do Kong versus Orca. Absolutely, they would, and nothing would stop him from, strange radiation has made Orca, 300 feet long, and yeah, because it's Dino De Laurentiis, and that is, I mean, he made King Kong Lives, which, by the way, is nearly impossible to find. so, so yeah, unfortunately, I do believe that that's possible.
I mean,
I,
yeah,
I
no,
don't
strange things
question
happen.
whether or not it's possible. I question or not that it's true because
Mm.
I have only seen this one reference to it. Like
Well, yeah, I guess you're right. Somebody could have just gone, you know what, Dino is likely to do. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's a good point.
So, before we conclude or
Yeah, it's
close
about
up
time for
here,
our final thoughts. So yeah, what's your thought?
I just wanted to say that that Richard Harris, you had said at the beginning, Drew, and I meant to bring it up earlier, that Richard Harris probably was drunk a lot. Well, he actually drank a whole lot on this set because he had seen a tabloid magazine where in the tabloid magazine that a photograph of his wife on a beach with a younger man. And
Oh, no.
apparently he was wanting to stop performing and fly to Malibu to kill them. But he got into I guess it says there was a brawl in which Vincenzoni, however you pronounce it, Vincenzoni, got a black eye for whatever reason that somehow kept him. But this is all according to Vincenzoni is what that this happened. So so a lot of the darkness of that character is legit, real, where he's just like miserable and angry. And he looks it. I mean, it as the movie progresses, he looks more and more haggard and just like destroyed.
It's gotta be
defeated.
like what a weird juxtaposition. Like I've got my own whale to go hunt.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
just a weird.
He looks like
what a
hammered
weird.
by
Yeah.
the end of the movie.
What a I mean, but going to go kill somebody. Jeez
Yeah.
Louise.
Mhm.
But what a strange piece of ephemera for the
Mhm.
movie, given the context of what he's doing in the movie.
Absolutely.
Like, good grief. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, he is, I say that he seems like he's drunk, but he's also still very good in the movie because it kind of
It works.
works.
Right.
Like he is 100% believable as this guy.
Well, you can picture it. I mean, with that knowledge, you in the context of the movie, though, you can picture as like once he realizes, like, oh man, what have I done? And like we said, I lost my wife in this accident, and that weighs on him more and more as the movie progresses.
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrible that it becomes the what he's dealing with in real life and his own way of dealing with it. All of that's awful, but also again, it's so strange that's what's actually going on. But you kind of make sense and adds to that performance as terrible as it is.
I also, I think about this anytime I watch a movie from this time period where, because I watched Trading Places yesterday, and that's a few years after this.
Okay.
But
yeah.
I think about like Dan Aykroyd is a romantic lead in that movie, and he's not like a classically handsome guy. Same thing here. Richard Harris he's not ugly, but he's not like, he's definitely not Chris Evans.
No, but he's attractive in like a Dracula way. I was saying to Jason, like, did you ever play Dracula? I feel like he could have been.
He would have been an amazing Dracula. But like I kind of enjoy that about this particular time period where you would have leads in movies that weren't like the perfect chiseled
no, that's true,
specimen. And we talked about this before. We talked about this a lot when we did The Fog and like it's when you have a guy that is well cast for the type that he is, and no, he's not an unattractive man, but he's got thin hair, he's very gaunt.
Yeah.
But he is 100% believable that this is like a guy that's a sailor.
Yes.
And I think there's something cool about that. Like, same thing about, Dan Aykroyd in Trading Places is, he looks like somebody that would have been in that movie in particular. He looks like somebody that would have been a Wall Street guy during that time period. And I just think that casting has gotten a lot blander.
Oh, absolutely.
As we moved away from that.
Because think about that remake of The Fog that we watched, which was just full of very beautiful people,
like kind of
that were not very interesting.
CW type actors. And I kind
of a lot can be done with acting, though. Like for instance, in other words, it is the actors, but it's also the choices of the directors and the producers who are putting it together. Because if you think of like Robert Shaw as Quint, that movie is only like 10 years after he was Red Grant in From Russia with Love. There's acting involved, like he looks like two completely different human beings. It's just, this is 10 years after Camelot. So Richard Harris here looks completely different. from the way he looks as
Well,
King
also
Arthur.
apparently because he was in a depression too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know,
But you can also picture him because he's got if you kind of think of him as a captain, like he also works in kind of almost a Cousteau kind of
Yes.
look, like
Yeah, that's
that
right.
kind
He
of
really
vibe.
does, especially with the beanie.
As we're seeing, Cousteau become more and more popular, and he's on PBS and he's on specials, like having a captain who kind of also has that vibe, like he's like thinner, like he's not the swarthy captain you might see. He's not like a Captain Nemo, right?
Yeah.
Like he fits that bill as far as what we know from, like, oh, he's the captain of this ship, like so I think, given the context of the time, he also fits that. I think it's great casting.
Yeah, well said. All right. I think we've probably spoken about this enough, and it's only the beginning of our set of Jaws ripoffs, which is going to be super fun. So why don't we wrap up here and get our final thoughts on Orca? Um, Gosh, how cool has this been? Julia, aren't you glad to be back on the show and talking about, in this case, killer whales?
Yes, I'm so I've missed Drew and Tony and talking with you guys every week. But yeah, this is a fun one to get started with. It's not, it's not the best movie, it's not the worst movie. It's just a fun thing to watch. I think I liked the performances. I liked the premise. I liked the crazy whale. But I did think it was a little bit slow. I did think that the 2 minutes at the beginning and another couple minutes throughout and another couple minutes at the end of just watching some whale footage was maybe a little much, with the lady singing the oohs. But oh yeah, Jason, I'm surprised you didn't talk about the Ennio Morricone score,
Well,
because
I'm
that's always
glad that you mentioned it. That's that's
that's always
that's
something that
next.
you bring up usually.
Yeah,
Anyway, so that was pretty cool. Music was good. So yeah, I think the crew did a great job. I think the cast did a great job. I just think maybe the editor is the one I'm having the issues with, because I feel like there's some of that could have been left on the cutting room floor. But it's a fun picture.
wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Drew, what about you?
my opinions kind of mirror Julia's in this. I don't think this is going to be. I'll probably go another while before it's not going to be. In terms of this kind of movie, it's not going to be Alligator, which is a movie I would consider to be like a comfort food movie that's sort of in this genre. But I did enjoy revisiting it. And, honestly, the distance between the last time I watched it made it a more interesting experience, which I think made this discussion better. I do think when you are talking about this particular subgenre of film and this particular time period between like the late 70s and early 80s, where they were just making a lot of these.
Yeah.
I do think that this is an important movie to discuss, because this is one of the better examples of its type, and it's one of the bigger budgeted versions.
Mhm.
Like a lot of the stuff that were done that were kind of like the Jaws ripoffs, like I think it's stuff like The Last Shark, or even Piranha, which is a fun movie and a movie that I
Yeah.
honestly like more than this one. But they were micro budgeted movies by comparison. This is a pretty glitzy product when you at the end of the day, and I think that that's important to the discussion. I also, we mentioned King Kong a couple of times. I think
Yeah.
outside of Jaws, I think there's something to be said about attaching this to the discussion of Kong. So there's two little bits of film history and genre film history that's wrapped up in this. But not a great movie, but definitely a fun one and a fun discussion, to be sure.
Very good. Thank you very much. Tony, what about you?
Yeah, I think it was cool revisiting this. Like I said, having such strong memories as a kid, like it's always interesting to see what you think of it now as an adult. What's changed, what movies have you seen since then. Also, for some reason, in my mind, the scene with the with the whale, with the pup and all that took place at night in my head for years as a kid. I don't know why. So that was like, wait, that was. It's just weird what your memory does to
Yeah.
things, Yeah,
I mean, to be fair, a lot of the time the whale is in the daylight and but everything else is at night, so it's easy to
right.
be confused.
Sure. But yeah, I think it's an interesting movie. I think it's this genre as we move from Jaws to whatever else, what other animals can attack, right? I still think it's great cast. It's not part of my normal rotation, I don't think, but there's a lot of interesting things
Mm-hmm.
to go back to and kind of watch through this. It's not as much of a B movie as a lot of other animal attack movies.
Absolutely right. Wow. I uh I have nothing to add to that other than I'm really glad that we watched this because I don't think I ever actually watched this before. So considering that this is something that was a part of pop culture in the 70s and you saw that poster everywhere and there is in fact a novelization available for free on archive.org that I definitely have to read and so it was just one of those pop culture pieces that I didn't see until now, and so I'm really happy. And I'm sure there's got to be a Mad Magazine satire of it. There has to be.
But
So
Jason, I think it's backwards. It says the movie was released the same year that its source novel was published, so I think the novel came first.
I think it's maybe I'm not sure though. I
It
think
says
that
source novelist Arthur Herzog was not credited for his source Orca novel story.
so I thought it was a novelization by Arthur Herzog. Okay,
But
hold
that's
that thought. We will so if you know, write in, but otherwise we'll look it up. Cool. Cuz I thought it was just an early novelization. Doesn't matter. We'll figure it out. Thank you for pointing that out. But it is Arthur Herzog who wrote The Swarm and was an active horror writer. Okay. So that brings us to, for the first time meeting in 6 weeks, endorsements. And I have no idea. If I think of something to endorse, I will mention it. If not, I will just mention something next week. Julia, I don't know if you're prepared to endorse anything, but
I hadn't thought about it, but since my memory's crap, I'm gonna go with the most recent thing that I
mm,
watched, which is the first episode of the new True Detective season with Jodie Foster, which is
Ooh.
already just awesome,
mm,
so good. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, I think I'll stick with that because I watched a bunch of stuff, but honestly, I can't think right now which one I would want to pick. So we'll go with that.
wonderful. All right, cool. Drew, what about you?
Well, two things. First of all, the Infilled Poltergeist on Apple Plus, which is a documentary series about a quote unquote real life haunting in the 1970s in England. It is actually what The Conjuring 2 was based off of.
Hmm,
Although, watching this documentary, it's real eye-opening how little the Warrens were actually involved with the real case versus what The Conjuring 2 makes it seem like. But it's fascinating, it's scary, it's interesting. It comes at it from both it has people on it that it gives like equal face time to people who are believers in the paranormal and people who are skeptical, which is an interesting approach, because I feel like usually with anything that's a paranormal documentary, it kind of takes one approach or the other. But just a fascinating view. Another thing, I received as a Christmas gift a Blu-ray of Cemetery Man. The
hmm,
Blu-ray recently put out by Severin Films. It's a 4K restoration. It looks beautiful. It's loaded with special features, including a CD of the soundtrack, which is cool. I am been kind of chiseling away at it here and there when I've had free time. Honestly, my wife got me a bunch of horror movie Blu-rays, so like I'm gonna be kind of taking my time with it over the next few weeks, kind of exploring those. So that'll probably end up being my endorsements off and on for the next several weeks. But yeah, both of those solid choices for genre fans.
Love it. Thank you very, very much. Tony, what about you?
I'm also going to mirror Julia's endorsement because ever since I saw Tigers Are Not Afraid, I was really stoked for whatever Issa Lopez is coming out with. So when they said, oh, she's going to be directing and writing, showrunner, writer, director of True Detective, I really wanted to see what she was going to do. Tigers Are Not Afraid is just a gut punch of a movie, but also just amazing.
It is fantastic.
It's really good. So yeah, I also watched the first episode, and I'm really, really excited to see where it goes from here. Like Drew, I got a bunch of Shaw Brothers box sets from Shout, which some of them are starting to go out of print. So I'm trying to stay ahead of them going out of print. Shout's done a really great job with these box sets. And I highly recommend, even if you have some of the Arrow Shaw sets, kind of replacing some of my older DVDs and stuff that I got from different regions. It's been really great to see movies that kind of maybe aren't as well known, as others, like, it's less Venom stuff. There's a lot of women in the Shaw pantheon that are getting their due in a lot of these movies, which is great. I also got the Warriors 4K box set, which is really nice. Like, art direction, production is great. An awesome producer and woman who's done a lot of stuff in film, Heather Buckley. I actually know her from Fantastic Fest and from doing movies, and saw her name in the credits and was like, that's so cool. She and the crew did an excellent job with all the extras. In the Warriors box set as well, there's the theatrical version and the kind of newer version, which has, people like it, people don't like that. It has these like comic book transitions, and I went back and watched it in the original theatrical version, and boy, like, is it just such a nice. It's cool that they did 4K versions of both, so you have all that, and the book and the box, everything about that set. Like, if you're a Warriors fan, if you're a fan at all of the movie, Walter Hill in general, like, this one's for you for sure. Because it's great. But yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff, and so those are the ones that stand out right now.
Beautiful. Wow. So mine is also a blast from the past. Julia and I just started watching Northern Exposure, which is finally on Prime. So that has been just very strange to suddenly, because it has not been available for all this time until now. I guess it took time because, Tony, you and I have talked about this. An old show has a lot of music in it. You can either clear the music or you can replace the music. And either one of those takes money, because even replacing the music takes engineering. And I'm pleased that they did it. So that brings us to the end. I don't know what our next movie is. We don't know. I know that it is some kind of a Jaws inspired thing, but I don't know quite what direction we're going to go. If it's going to be true, like, crazy gonzo Italian exploitation ripoffs, or if it's going to be more of the indoor bull stuff that, like, starred Jason Robards and things like that. So who knows? Sky's the limit, y'all. So
sadly, what would fit if we were more entrepreneurial, or if we had the wherewithal, we can't endorse our own Lava Shark as I guess we need to, for the next time we do movies, we need to put this together somehow.
I guess we need to buckle down and do the writing is the thing.
Right.
So yeah. All right. But yes. Thank you, everybody. Be excellent to one another. Come to the Facebook page. Let us know your thoughts, and we will talk to you really soon. Bye.
Night.
Good night, everybody.